all have been asking why not $1 a month health benefit card for free.
There will be no love dying here. For flowers in my Asian vase is not a sign we're dead. I paid for 3, and a sweet old lady gave me 4 instead. There's some doubt that's out about this love, but I won't let it be. There will be no love dying here for me. There will be no love dying here. No, there will be no love dying here. Oh, there will be no love dying here.
So thinking in terms of parental alienation and what that is specifically rejected fathers, fathers who've been rejected, fathers who've been alienated from their children. What does that mean? Alienated. That means that there's a concept called parental alienation where one parent has custody of a child and said parent has likely unresolved childhood trauma. And that unresolved trauma can be it can be a lot of things. But what happens psychologically is that when that parent grows up and has a child of their own or children of their own, their unresolved childhood trauma becomes projected onto the child, onto their children. So whatever stuff they haven't healed from, dealt with from their childhood, still lives in them, and they project it onto their child. And then they position themselves as the hero or the savior, the one that's going to save the child from this trauma. It's a whole world. It's a whole world of knowledge and real experiences. And, you know, I look at my own life and I know that I was alienated from my father and didn't meet him until I was 15, I think. And it had a major impact, you know, in my development, in my conception of self, in my evolution as a man, you know, in my role now as a father, and looking at how I can best prepare my child for success and for strength, right? And the reason why I wanted to do this post, well, it lives in me, it lives in my heart, lives in my soul. So there's a lot of reasons why, but there's a lot of men out there, and I'm just speaking to the men, that, you know, parental alienation is not gender specific, and women become alienated from their children too. And regardless of gender, it's very sad. It's very sad. And it's very troubling and painful. And some people never come back from it. Some relationships are never repaired or restored. And and that's typical. It's sad but typical. And my main message to those parents out there, if you are, in fact, specifically, I'm speaking to fathers who've been rejected by their children, who've been alienated by the other parent. who've been kept out of their children's lives, who feel like they are alone, who feel like they've been left behind, who feel like there's no way to solve the problem. There's no way to restore what's been lost and taken. I'm here just to say that that's not true. That's not true. And sadly, the truth is that some parents, some fathers will never reunite with their kids. They'll never have that peace in their spirit, in their body, in their mind of knowing that they have a good connection, a good bond with their children, and that they can rest easy, they can work in peace, they can enjoy, the fruits of life. The reality is that some people will never restore that, and what we find is very prevalent. This occurs all the time. It occurs across cultures, although the United States American culture is probably the most sophisticated at separating families and having this disparity between adults and children, and having fathers specifically, and perhaps specifically non-white fathers, but also white people suffer from this reality as well. So, one, you're not alone. Two, what we find is that we're part of a long, strange, perverse tradition of what comes out of kind of chattel slavery, what comes out of separating the families. And the national government has a framework called Parens Patriae, Parens, Parens Patriae, Patriae, Parens Patriae. And it basically means that the nation is the parents of the citizens, and thus fulfill a role in a larger nation as family framework, conceptual metaphor. And the parents, the nation, the federal government, the state government, the rulers, the leaders have a choice to either be a strict parent or a nurturing parent. We all do. And if we're good at it, we balance between the two. There's a time to be strict. There's a time to be restrictive. There's a time for, humans, children to develop a sense of resiliency, of grit, if you will, being able to bounce back from something. And they can't do it if they're being nurtured all the time. They need some boundaries, some rules, some discipline. But we also need that nurturing side. We need a side that is comforting, is forgiving, yielding, is nurturing. Typically we tend to think of our mothers or a mother figure as the nurturant parent, and the father, the male figure, as the strict parent. This isn't always true. But anyway, the point is that in this country, there's a tradition of separating the families, of breaking down the roles, the parental roles. And parents have been, maybe largely women, have been incentivized to participate, to, in fact, work to separate the fathers from the children. They get incentives in the forms of money, in the forms of housing, in the forms of kind of a social status quo acceptance that there's a community and a culture out there who supports them, knows that they're in need of support, and so collectively is there behind them. And sometimes men get that, sometimes fathers get that support and that acknowledgement, single fathers, but even single fathers are largely looked at, suspiciously, um, unless they are, publicly performing in a kind of assimilatory way, meaning they're trying to at least present as though they are, attempting to assimilate into the status quo, if you will. Um, but what it feels like, for what does it feel like for a father to be alienated from, their child, their children? It feels like you're stuck in a wall and you can't get out, and you can't go back and you can't go forward, but you have to go forward. So you go forward and you carve your way through that wall. You're attempting to try to escape something. And I think a lot of men become so beaten down and so discouraged. They're so abused. They're so neglected. They're so estranged. They're so alienated. They're so rejected that they can't withstand the comfort of being in the wall. They can't withstand the sensations of passing through the wall, of coming out the other side in mud and muck and shit, and funk, and being able to stand up, right? And thinking in terms of, what does this look like? There's a movie called Shawshank's Redemption, something, and it's where, the guy's in prison and he carves a hole through the prison wall. He carves his way out of the prison. He escapes. But it's a long journey, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and dedication. This is the metaphor for the alienated father, the rejected father. You're in the wall, or maybe you're just starting to carve your way through the wall, and you just have a small tool that you're able to start digging in the wall with. And, before you know it, you'll be in the wall. You'll have enough room and space to get into the wall. And it's going to be a long journey, and you're going to feel alone. You're going to want to quit. You're going to call on the heavens. You can call on the spiritual forces around you. You're going to call your friends and family who won't get it sometimes, And what you have to remember is that there's a way out. There's a way out of the wall, and you're going to get through it. And it's important that we keep our children, at the front of our mind, like a diamond between our eyes. We have to be drawn, pulled by that glimmer, and we push toward it without giving up. And if we're able to do that, we show our children a model of what, real resilience is, without losing it all, without losing our minds, without, going back on our word, showing them, modeling for them, wow, look how he withstands, the abuse, the rejection. After all this time, he's still, in the wall, working his way through the wall, en route to escaping. He's still going to have to crawl through some shit, and when he comes out the other end, he's going to be, funky. And it's probably going to be pouring rain on him, and it's that whole image, but we have to trust in the fact, and this is the reality that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about parental alienation and how fathers are rejected, is that we're actually part of a long tradition, especially on this soil in the Americas, where chattel slavery, where the destruction of the family, the rejection specifically of the non-white masculine figure, especially the father figure who perhaps has wisdom or knowledge, understanding about spiritual systems, about a way of being that doesn't jibe with or assimilate into the kind of larger status quo, larger nation is family kind of concept of what a man is and what a father is. We're part of this long tradition, and it sucks, but we find strength in knowing that one, we can survive it. One, we're stuck in the wall. How do I get through the wall? You just keep carving, and you just hold it together. Sometimes you sit in that wall all day, all night, day after day, months after months. Some guys haven't seen their kids in years. I thank God that I have a strong relationship with my child, and that we make the most of our time together. And it's beneficial for me. It's beneficial for her. It's mutually beneficial. But I can identify with being stuck in the wall and, having a small, crude tool to, have to carve my way through. And nobody's coming to save you, is the thought. So I like that song by Gregory Porter, No Love Dying. There will be no love dying here, the mirror that fell from the wall was raggedy, that's all. It hung upon a rusty nail before it made its fall. The bones of love are everywhere, but I won't or the bones of death are everywhere, but I won't let it be. There will be no love dying here in me. So I just want to offer some encouragement to fathers out there who have been rejected by their children, who are being, currently alienated and estranged from their children. And to know that you're not alone, and to know that the longer you're able to hold on and keep it together, you are being forged in the fire. You are being, made into a whole, powerful, being, a symbol. You're symbolic in a way. You're real. Your pain is real. But what's going to happen is when you come out the other end, you're going to have such a high spiritual capital from having to go through that carnal crap, that that if you can make it through this shit, you can make it through anything. A man who is honest and earnest and, about his love for his children, loves his children, and is working to do the best he can, whatever that looks like. It looks like a lot of things. Holding on to that truth. That's the guiding principle, that love. It's like an object pulling us. It's not just our children, it is, but it's a larger principle of family. And as we have had to kind of reinvent, those of us who grew up without fathers, who were alienated from our fathers, it's this cruel irony where, you're alienated from your father as a boy, and then there, as a father, as a man, there's people actively working to try to keep you from your children. This is a reality a lot of men face, and I can only assume that my father, faced the same thing. Well, he had his father in his life, but whatever. My point is that it's a tradition. It's a kind of, it's something that's passed down, just like the rash of chattel slavery. The almost inborn, embedded like concept of the family must be broken apart. The family must be perverted in some way, broken in some way. We're a part of it. And there's a particular kind of high place and a high calling for fathers who are well-meaning, who are hardworking, who really try to be in their children's lives, and who do all they can. All they can, Is it everything? No, but it's all they can do. And there's a special place for those of us, who have withstood that and made it out the other side of the wall. So Shawshank Redemption has that model of, having to escape, knowing that you were unjustly convicted, and that, there's a sense of freedom that you have to get to. And that's the process. And this image that I'm showing here is it's a framework that allows somebody, not just alienated fathers, but anybody who's gone through something, who's going through something, to kind of process that experience, to reflect on it, and ultimately to write about it. The thought is that this framework will allow somebody to write about, in a kind of small, quick way, about their lived experience, and be able to point to some exact and specific kind of, milestones or revelations that came along the way, ultimately leading to a sense of pure freedom, the high G status, where you're purely free. Another movie is called Sexy Beast. There's this movie, Sexy Beast, Ben Kingsley, where it's a bank heist, and they have to go into one building and then break through the wall to get into the other building to steal the jewels and to get into the vault. And so this is another just example of going through a wall. And sometimes when we go through the wall, it was of our own doing. It was of our own kind of intent. Like, I put myself in the wall. Like, I knew I had to go through the wall, or I wanted to be in that place in a way. And so I worked to go through the wall. But in this example, they go through the wall, they get the jewels, and they come back out through the wall. So sometimes there's a transition, a transformation, a transcendental place where we are forced to resist, or we're being encounter resistance. We are being actually forged, formed in that process that we intentionally set out to do. But we do it because we're going to come back with some jewels. And there's a resilience there. There's a spirit of strength and fight and masculinity that we can hone in that move. So there's being stuck in the wall where you're escaping the prison. There's going through the wall when there's something on the other side of the wall. And, for alienated fathers, the wall is the lies, the slanders, the stories that the mother told about the father, is the development and weird, strange, perverted psychological manipulation that happens to the child. Whereas once she or he saw the child saw the father as, the hero, as the figure of strength and love, and the symbol of rule, or, reigning, like the overseer, the one who's able to lay out the framework by which we can all kind of adhere, and to witness how that psychological piece, the mind gets turned, is sad. It's sad and it's hurtful. But I just want to encourage fathers out there, if you're going through this right now, if you are being rejected by your children, your child, if you've been alienated from your children, your child, from your ex, hang on, keep pushing, don't give up, don't lose it, keep it together, be a model, be an example. You're not perfect, you're not perfect, but there's perfection in the practice. We're made with practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes habit. And as we forge the habit of, carving through the wall, or sitting in the wall and finding peace stuck in a place, were made very real, were made very kind of strong and perfect, right? A very well made thing, a perfectly made thing, like the highest technology. We are the sophisticated technology of a masculine form of resistance in the face of a nation family metaphor, nation as home metaphor, which perhaps has rejected us, or through the systems and the policies and the practices and weird demons has made us to seem as if we don't fit, that we're not part of the family. And sometimes we're not, and sometimes that's exactly where we need to be. And so don't give up. You're not alone. There's a lot of resources out there. Increasingly there's resources out there which help fathers, parents who've been alienated or rejected. But fathers specifically are who I really care about, because it seems to happen. Like majority of the cases of parental alienation is a mother is alienating the child from the father, which is the literature suggests that it's because that mother has unresolved childhood trauma that she's superimposing on the child in order to validate herself as somebody who can come save the child. And so they then try to save the child through all the different mechanisms and machinations that they have at their, access. They, deploy lawyers and counselors, and they write affidavits and all kinds of stuff that ultimately come to paint a picture, write a narrative of the father as if their role in the child's development is not essential, as if it's not an evolving thing, as if that person is supposed to be some perfect model, perfect, But the of course the conundrum is, the catch is, there's never a for the parent who would do that, who's willing to alienate their poor child from the other parent. There's never a mode, a model. There's never a form, that the other parent is going to fit into. That's going to be considered, oh well, they finally got their stuff together. No, because it's not about that other parent. It's about the alienating parent who hasn't dealt with their shit yet, who hasn't even addressed it, hasn't started to heal from it, is projecting it like a movie projector, shining it on to the child so that the story of the child becomes the parent's, preferred story, unresolved story. The story where their story got interrupted when they were a kid, they're trying to pick back up in that way with their own children. So it's really funky and perverse. But to all the alienated fathers out there and the rejected fathers, hang in there. You're not a bad person. I mean, you know if you are or you aren't, but like, just from the outside looking in, hang in there, don't give up. You're stuck in the wall. There's going to be a time where you're out of the wall, but you just gotta work your way through it, bit by bit. You just gotta keep carving your way out of the wall, or maybe you put yourself in the wall because you were going to get some jewels, and hopefully you got the jewels. I got a jewel I want to share with you here, just in a second.
There will be no love dying here. For flowers in my Asian vase is not a sign we're dead.
Salute, 448.
I paid for 3, and a sweet old lady gave me 4 instead. There's some doubt that's out about this love, but I won't let it be. There would be no love dying here for me. There will be
So if you don't know Gregory Porter, I suggest you check him out. That's my favorite song by Gregory Porter. It's called "No Love Dying," but he's great. He's real great. I'm just gonna close out with a poem by Muhammad Ali. You know, there was a time where I was at a very low place, and one day I heard this poem just so randomly, and it brought me to tears. It really just it crushed me, and but lifted me up. You know, and I've held on to it since then. And of course, you know, Muhammad Ali is, you know, one of the greats, you know, and he was a real cool poet too. So this is from the Mike Douglas show back in maybe the late 60s, 70s. And it's a powerful piece. So if you're feeling low, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling alienated, rejected, if you're feeling like there's no way out, if there's no way forward, you feel like you're about to lay down in the ditch and die, I urge you to listen to this poem.
Ali poetry. Have you got something for us today?
A little something that says, riding on my horse of hope, holding in my hand the rein of courage, dressed in the armor of patience, the helmet of endurance on my head, I started on my journey to the land of love.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very nice. We'll be right back.
So that's powerful, powerful, short piece. You can see Sly was happy about it. I'm gonna play it one more time.
Ali poetry. Have you got something for us today?
A little something that says, riding on my horse of hope, holding in my hand the rein of courage, dressed in the armor of patience, the helmet of endurance on my head, I started on my journey to the land of love.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very nice. We'll be right back. Muhammad Ali poetry. Have you got something for us today?
A little something that says, riding on my horse of hope, holding in my hand the rein of courage, dressed in the armor of patience, the helmet of endurance on my head, I started on my journey to the land of love.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very nice. We'll be right back. Muhammad Ali poetry. Have you got something for us today?
A little something that says, riding on my horse of hope, holding in my hand the rein of courage, dressed in the armor of patience, the helmet of endurance on my head, I started on my journey to the land of love.
Yeah, that's nice. That's very nice. We'll be right back.